Listen to this. Something big is happening. And I don't think it's good. I don't. Something's going on behind the scenes. We're being distracted. This isn't a game. This is not a little board game. It's not, you all. It's not. The players that are in this game, oh, they mean business. They mean business, you all. So we're going to look at this. I'm going to try to see if I can get myself situated. We're going to listen to it. I just saw the press briefing. I saw asking about how long would it take to get enough troops, because we don't have enough manpower. We don't. So we're going to look at it, and if this is not to your liking, don't watch it. Don't watch it. But this is happening in our world. Happened today. It did. And I want to know what he had to say. I want to know what he had to say. This video will probably not get very many views. It probably will be kind of, you know what, because of the nature of it. But this is a real world event, and it affects human beings on the face of the planet. So we're going to look at it. We are going to look at it. Let me click over here. And hello, you all. Let's go listen to it. Let's come back over here. We're going to go, and I'm going to put the link. I'm going to put the link right here, and you're going to see me do it right here. We're going to look at it. That's right, you are. We're going to look at it. Well, unfortunately, we are living on this planet. We are. And here's the link to that. Here's the link to this. And I hope you all are going to be able to hear it. I really do. I hope you can. You just let me know, because I'm going to press it. Press the button.
Context on the department.
I'll see if we can.
Good afternoon, everybody. All right, before I get to your questions, I'd like to provide some important context on the department's ongoing efforts to take care of our people, which is one of Secretary Austin's top priorities. The Secretary cares deeply about our troops and their families and is grateful for all that they do worldwide every day to defend our nation. Through the course of his duties and during his travels, the Secretary has made it a point to speak with and hear from service members, to thank them and hear what's on their minds. Today, he issued a memo outlining a series of actions the department will take to improve how we support our service members and their families, and to address in a comprehensive way issues that affect stability and family readiness. As Secretary Austin highlights in this memo, military families are the strong foundation of our force, and taking care of them is a national security imperative. Our military has some of the most advanced equipment, tactics, and warfighting capabilities in the world, but nothing is accomplished without the men and women who serve in our armed forces and the families that support them. Over the last 20 months, the Secretary has met with service members across the country and around the world. He's seen their dedication to the mission, but he's also heard from them about the extraordinary pressures they face. Some, such as the challenges of PCS moves and spouses having to search for new jobs, are enduring features of military life, while others, such as rapid increases in housing costs, are more recent. Today's actions are a direct response of what the Secretary has heard from our service members. Some of these initiatives are ideas that came directly from the force, and they reflect his commitment to the families who sacrifice every day in order to serve. The Secretary believes these efforts will only be successful if they're easily accessible to the audience that really matters, our service members and our military families. To that end, Secretary Austin met yesterday with Chief Master Sergeant Ramon Colon Lopez, the Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and the Senior Enlisted Advisors from each of the military services. Secretary Austin emphasized the sacred obligation that he and other DoD leaders have to take care of our people, and the importance of communicating to the force about how to take advantage of the initiatives we're announcing today and our other efforts to support military families. In the months to come, you'll see a wide-ranging effort to provide information and raise awareness about resources covering housing, child care, grocery bills, job opportunities, and more. The Secretary's memo addresses 4 goals. First, making sure basic needs are more affordable to military families. We'll boost basic allowance for housing rates in 28 markets where we've seen average rental rate increases of 20%. And the Secretary has directed the Department to review forthcoming 2023 BAH rates to ensure those rates reflect the dynamic nature of the current housing market across the board. We're surging funding into the commissary system to drop prices at the register so that military families see savings of at least 25% on grocery bills compared to their local marketplace. An investment that means military families will see lower grocery bills at the commissary in the next couple of weeks. Second, making moves easier for families. We'll extend coverage for temporary housing expenses while moving to give military families more flexibility through the move process, and we'll increase dislocation allowance payments for enlisted troops from E1 through E6 to offset personal expenses from PCS moves. Third, strengthening support for families with children. We continue investments in child care facilities, providing incentives to attract hard-to-find child care professionals, and expand a pilot program that provides free assistance for in-home child care. Fee assistance for in-home child care. Fourth, helping expand employment options for military spouses. We'll accelerate efforts to make occupational licenses that spouses obtain in one state transferable to other states, expanding directing hiring authorities for the Department to employ more military spouses, and launch a new Career Accelerator Fellowship program that matches military spouses with prospective employers, while also expanding the pool of companies that have made commitments to hire military spouses. These are not the first steps that Secretary Austin has launched to take care of our people. These actions follow an initial economic security memo issued last November, the Food Security Initiative that the Department launched in July, the proposal for the largest military pay increase in 2 decades included in the President's FY23 budget request, and historic reforms to curb the scourge of sexual assault and to prevent suicide in our ranks. These are also not the last steps that Secretary Austin and DoD leaders plan to take. The Secretary is committed to working with service leaders, members of Congress, and with advocates for military families on additional initiatives and opportunities to take care of our people. And he'll continue listening to our troops and their families about the challenges and the pressures they face and the ways we can help. Taking care of our people strengthens our national defense. It's also the right thing to do. And Secretary Austin and the entire department are committed to meeting that sacred obligation to our troops and their families. And with that, I'm happy to take your questions. Let's go ahead and start with AP, I believe we have on the phone.
Hi, Pat. Thank you. 2 things. One, there's been increasing rhetoric coming out of Russia on the threats to use nuclear weapons if Russian territory comes under attack. What is the Pentagon's comment on that? Has there been any changes to any posture at all, or any requests by any of the allies for increased protection in regard to those latest statements? And then I have one sort of little data question. I think you said the other day that there's 2.2 billion or so remaining in PDA until September 30th. All of that expires. I just wanted to double check. Does all of that expire if not used by the 30th, or is there any move that is extended? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Lita. In terms of the statements or the announcements coming out of Russia, it does not affect the department's commitment to continue working closely with our international partners and our allies on providing Ukraine with the support that it needs in their fight to defend their country. In terms of the money, for example, the USAI money is 2-year money, so that is available through September of 2023. In terms of the funding for the PDAs, I will get back to you on that question. Okay, let me go ahead and go to the room here. Tony.
Can you talk a little bit about the Pentagon's analysis of the 300,000 reservists, recruits that have been called up by Putin, in terms of where does this pool come from? Largely, where will it come from, and roughly how long will it take to give them any minimal training to be minimally combat effective and deployed. Any feel for that yet?
Sure. Well, I think you're seeing a lot of this in open press and in terms of what the Russians themselves have said in terms of where these forces would come from. And my understanding is these would primarily be reservists or members of the Russian military that had retired and were in an individual ready reserve type of status. All that to say, it's our assessment that it would take time for Russia to train and prepare and equip these forces. And I think it's important also to point out here that while in many ways this may address a manpower issue for Russia, what's not clear is whether or not it could significantly address the command and control, the logistics, the sustainment, and importantly, the morale issues that we've seen Russian forces in Ukraine experience.
A separate question. I'm going to follow up on Leah's question of the nuclear threat. To what extent has the nuclear, that threat, veiled or whatever, inhibited the United States from sending over longer range weapons like ATACMS, tanks of some kind, other weapons? I mean, have the Russians basically got a strategic victory in that respect in terms of red lines that the U.S. now is afraid to cross in terms of weapons shipments?
So I think we've been very clear all along that our focus is on continuing to have a very open and rigorous dialogue with our Ukrainian counterparts and the international community in terms of our allies and our partners on what are Ukraine's needs. And we will continue to have those conversations and we'll continue to think through not only what they need in the medium to long term, but also what they need now. So I don't see those conversations being impacted by this situation. You know, I think it's important here too to provide a little bit of context in the sense that if we go back in time a little bit, Russia invaded Ukraine and attempted to annex all of Ukraine, you know, by virtue of invading them, failed in that strategic objective. And so they scaled down the scope of their operational objectives. And even those aren't going well due to Ukraine's counteroffensive and the issues that I've highlighted in terms of logistics and sustainment. So by making these types of announcements about sham referenda or threats about attacking territory, it doesn't change the facts, operational facts on the ground, which are that the Ukrainians will continue to fight for their country. The Russian military is dealing with some significant challenges on the ground, and the international community will stand behind Ukraine as they fight to defend their country from an invasion.
Can I ask you one
Sure.
quick weapons question? To what extent is the providing of U.S. tanks, M1, A1s, or A2s, I guess it'd be A2s now, is that in the interagency debate right now at any level in terms of whether to provide or not?
So I'm not going to get into any specific systems that may be under discussion. Again, we've provided a variety of capabilities that the Ukrainians are using to great effect, and we're going to continue to have those discussions and look at a variety of capabilities in the days ahead. So thank you. Let me go ahead and go to Jim, and then I'll go back out to the phone.
General, just to be clear in your answer to Tony, you're saying that the Russian military still has these command and control, the logistics problems, the just supply sustainment, getting weapons to the places, and by adding 300,000 people, they're just compounding those problems.
I mean, that's speculation, but certainly if you are already having significant challenges and haven't addressed some of those systemic, strategic issues that make any large military force capable, there's nothing to indicate that it's going to get any easier by adding more variables to the equation.
And just to be clear, if President Biden called up 300,000 reservists, he'd get a group of well-trained folks who most of them in units, able to move out in like days, weeks, or months. That's not what the Russians are going to get, right?
Again, I'm not in the Russian military. I've never been in the Russian military. I don't plan to ever be in the Russian military. So I'm not going to speak for them. But I think we've seen some of the systemic challenges that they have in their force. And I think they will have their work cut out for them. Thank you. Let me go ahead and back out to the phone here. Let's go to Sangmin Lee from Radio Free Asia.
Yes, I have a question on the indication that Russia actually purchased weapons from North Korea. You mentioned before that you do have indication that Russia has approached North Korea to request ammunitions. So do you have indication that the purchase has actually occurred now?
Thanks for the question, Sangmin. So all I'll say is we stand by the information that we provided earlier, and beyond that, I don't have any additional updates to provide. Thank you. Buddy.
So I'm going to go back to your answer about the forces that were called for service in Russia. So is your understanding that these 300,000 are the troops that will be introduced into theater in Ukraine, or some of them might be replacing other forces that are ready to fight inside of Russia? And by that I mean, are you detecting any movement of new forces to enter Ukraine from the Russian side, or any indications that are certain units are preparing to enter Ukraine?
Yeah. So that's.
Please be respectful in your comments. You may not agree what is being said. You may not agree with the general on the TV. You may not agree with the people asking the questions. You may not agree with the responses that he gives. You may not agree with what's happening in the world, but we can be respectful. And in our comments, there should be no derogatory speaking down to me, people. There shouldn't, you all. I'm not going to tolerate it, okay? Even if I don't agree with somebody, I'm not going to, spew out venom. If you got the love in your heart, well, there's a time to speak and a time to be silent, okay? I just ask for respect. Okay, I may not agree with everything that's going on in the world either, you all, but I'm going to listen because I want to know what's going on. I want to know what's going on so I can prepare accordingly inside my spirit and physically if I have to.
It's really a question for the Russian military to address in terms of how exactly they plan to use those forces. Again, I think in the context of the challenges that Russia finds itself in right now as it pertains to Ukraine, and is evidenced by the rationale that was provided by President Putin and others in terms of why they're calling up these forces, it's clear that it's intended to help supplement and augment the broader military as they conduct this their operations in Ukraine. But in terms of the specifics, Vadi, that's just not something I have insight into. And then, second part of your question, I'm sorry.
Has the Pentagon detected any new movement or indications that new units are being prepared to enter Ukraine?
Yeah, so what I would say, again, without getting into a high level of operational detail, is that we've seen indications of some small numbers of replacement forces being moved into Ukraine to essentially help the Russian military shore up some of their defensive lines, but nothing on a large scale at this stage. Again, the battlefield remains very fluid, very dynamic, and so again, this is something that we'll continue to monitor. I know obviously the Ukrainians are monitoring very closely as well. Okay, yeah.
Thanks for taking my question. Since President Biden's comments on Sunday night on Taiwan, has the U.S. seen any sort of military shifts by China in the Taiwan Strait?
I'm not aware of any activity that I would characterize as out of the ordinary at this stage. So, thanks. All right, let me go out to the phone line here real quick, and then I'll come back to Barbara. Idris.
Hey, Pat. You mentioned in terms of, I think you said it would take some time for them to train and equip the folks that they're mobilizing. Is there a sense of how long that would be? Are we talking weeks, months? Next year, and do you have a sense of how many folks have already been sort of handed the paper to start mobilizing since the announcement was made?
Thanks, Idris. So really, what I would say is time will tell. It's just something we'll have to keep an eye on, and I'm not going to speculate. And in terms of the current status of that call up, that's something that I would have to refer you to the Russian Ministry of Defense on. I don't have any information to provide on that. Let me go to Barbara.
Can I come back and ask you a few questions on the food price initiative you laid out, if I may? And I understand you may have to take the questions, but are you talking about actually putting DOD budget or federal money into the exchanges and having them directly, this is my first question,
Sure.
directly address prices and lower prices themselves? Is that what you're talking about?
Sort of. Let me just give you a little bit of context, and what I would tell you is that we're posting some fact sheets to our website on each of the initiatives that I laid out that will deep dive, that will provide you, and importantly, our military members and their families with a lot of additional information. But in essence, for the commissaries specifically, what we've done is we've changed the commissary funding model to ensure that the Defense Commissary Agency is able to provide savings by eliminating the requirement for them to earn a profit margin from higher prices to pay their operating costs. So in other words, they're able to now use that money instead to put into buying down the costs of food.
Okay, so let me follow up on that.
Sure.
Can you provide us with how much money are you talking about in total? How long do you expect to have to do this? Is there a means test, or is it anyone of any rank and income that is qualified to shop in a commissary can take advantage of these savings? Have you identified food products such as healthy foods that this will apply to, or does this also apply to junk food?
Can you define junk food for me? Can you define junk food for
I
me?
was going to say, however the U.S. military would define junk food. I'll leave that to you. Kind of really a much deeper look at the economics of it, because I think it's been quite a while since the federal government got involved in many years in controlling anything related to food prices. Are you worried the commissaries will have enough of a profit margin to stay in business? Are you worried that this now puts you in direct competition with the private food sector? But especially means test, how long, how much money, when will you know, what do you have to see in food prices to stop this, to call a conclusion to this effort? Just
Yeah, so there's a lot of questions there, Barbara. But again, I think the fact sheet that we'll be able to provide you will be able to answer some of the more detailed aspects. And again, that will be available online to everyone here afterwards. What I would say, first of all, is in regards to your question, who benefits from this? Anyone who can shop at a commissary will benefit from this. It will take effect. You will probably see within 2 weeks, because every 2 weeks is when the commissaries go and they will look at prices, and then they'll, was when they're buying their food and adjusting prices. But within 2 weeks, you'll see prices drop by 25% in the commissary, thus benefiting anybody who shops there. This applies to essentially, most products in the commissary, but in particular, it's going to affect staples like bread, milk, eggs, as compared to grocery stores that are off installation. And so again, a lot of this goes back to the funding model, and that previously the commissaries had to use a lot of the money that they were bringing in order to maintain a profit margin, in order to sustain themselves. They still have a requirement to pay for their own operating costs by law.
So I have been in the commissary quite often, and they have pretty good prices, but they sell a lot of name brand products. There is no commissary product at all. I'm going to try to get over here too. I want to see what he's saying about war efforts. Oopsie. Let's see. No, it doesn't want to play.
It's priorities. I mean, from day one, taking care of people. And so he has been working very closely with our. Let me go back into the phone line, then I'll come over here to Carla. Do we have Ellen from Synopsis?
Hi, thank you so much. There have been a couple of calls from congressmen to have the DoD drop the COVID vaccine mandate in response to recruiting problems and in response to the president calling the pandemic over. I was wondering if the Pentagon has an official response to this.
So I don't have any specific comments to make in terms of congressional requests. Broadly speaking, what I would tell you is that the DoD still requires that military members be vaccinated. As we've said before, this is a readiness issue. It's a warfighting issue. If we have to deploy forces around the world, similar to the other types of vaccinations that we're required to have, we need to ensure that our forces are ready to go. Thank you, ma'am. All right, let me go to Heather, and then I'll come back to Heather at USNI. Heather Babb.
Carla Babb.
I'm sorry.
There is a Heather Babb, so I understand that.
Yeah.
It's a problem with reading this entire. Okay.
It's okay, Babb.
Carla, and then
I
Heather.
just real quickly on Syria. The attack that was thwarted near Al Hol by SDF forces. Did the U.S. military have any role or have any input into helping the SDF with that attack? And if so, can you give us some more details on that?
Thanks, Carla. So what I would say is I'm not aware of any U.S. Or DoD involvement in that. I am aware of CENTCOM's statement on that, so I'd refer you to them, and they can provide you with some additional details on that. Thank you. Okay, now for real, let me go to Heather, USNI.
Great, thank you so much. Two questions unrelated to each other, but the first is that there's been reporting on social media and in some outlets about a USB that appeared on a beach in Crimea. I was wondering if you can confirm that this USB did appear, and also if that was one of the USBs that the United States provided back in April. And then on the vaccine mandate, I was wondering if you're able to, and you might have to take this for the record, I was wondering if you know if the military, the Pentagon, actually have the ability to provide the FDA licensed Pfizer and Moderna shots, or if they're still using EUA licensed shots.
On your second question, we'll take that one and come back to you. In terms of the reports out there about a I think you called it a C vehicle. Yeah, I don't have anything on that. Thank you. Okay, sir.
Just a quick question about another congressional question. Republicans are saying that moving the Taiwan desk from the East Asia office and into the portfolio of the new Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for China sends a signal to Beijing that we might be prioritizing their concerns over Taiwan's. What's the DoD's response to people who might hold that view?
Yeah, so what I would say, and I think we provided this to others as well, is that this was simply an administrative move within the department in terms of just helping to better manage it. No one should really read into it too much. Thank you. Courtney.
Just wanted to follow up on the question from a couple of days ago about the abortion services. The VA announced that they've provided their first abortion at a VA facility.
Nuclear policy. Yeah.
And that it will apply it.
All right, Sylvie from AFP.
Hello, thank you. I would like to go back to Putin's nuclear threat. Is it the assessment of the Pentagon that Putin has shifted the Russia's nuclear weapon use policy, and that it will apply to the Ukrainian territories that Moscow wants to annex?
Yeah, thanks, Sylvie. I'm not going to comment on Russian nuclear policy. What I would tell you is that from where we sit right now, we have not seen anything that would cause us to change our own posture. Certainly, we'll continue to watch this closely and take any kind of rhetoric seriously. But again, at this stage, we've seen nothing that would indicate that we need to change any approach from our perspective. Thank you. Okay, sir.
Ukraine asked for 4 MQ-1C Gray Eagles, and yesterday Secretary Austin got a letter asking the Secretary to review from Congress, asking to speed the review or to go over that review. In the last 24 hours, has there been any progress on looking at that particular case for Ukraine?
Thank you. First of all, what I would say in terms of congressional correspondence, it'd be inappropriate for me to talk about that from the podium, and so again, we continue to maintain a robust dialogue with Ukraine and the international community. Let's not mix apples and oranges here. What we're talking about is security assistance to Ukraine. When it comes to the employment of U.S. military capabilities, again, I'd refer you to the Army to talk about their own systems. Certainly, we're going to consider a variety of options in terms of how we employ those kinds of capabilities, the operating environments that we employ them in. And just broadly speaking, as an airman, when we do employ aerial systems, it's more than just the aircraft. It's a variety of capabilities that are supporting those aircraft. So there's a lot that goes into employing any type of aircraft. So I just highlight those as factors that, like any system, we would have to take into account before we introduce it to the battlefield. Thanks. Okay. Let me go ahead here, and then I'll go back up to the phone. Yes, sir.
Thank you, General. Regarding to other area like Syria, do you have any communication?
Thank you. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Is the DoD going to launch an investigations to look into the accusations made against U.S. forces in Iraq of the killing of an Iraqi teenagers in Abu Ghraib recently by a bullet?
I don't have any information on that, so let me take that question for you. Thank you. Okay, let me do one more for the phone here, and then do last couple here in the room. Qasim from Anadolu.
Yeah, thank you very much, General, for taking my question. I was going to ask about this prisoner swap. Based on...
Did Secretary Austin have any hand in that decision to allow it to be rolled out? And should observers look at that as a less than subtle message to China of this new U.S. capability that later this decade will be flying?
Yeah, so the Secretary is certainly aware of the Air Force's announcement. I would refer you to the Air Force to talk through the specifics. Of course, part of this is the normal maturation of the B-21 program. And in terms of sending a message, I would just broaden the aperture here and just say, by virtue of the B-21 and the capability that it will provide to the United States military and to our allies and partners around the world, it certainly does send a message in terms of our ability to provide global strike anywhere, anytime.
Later this decade, obviously. Quick housekeeping. What's the status of the National Defense Strategy, which you control, versus the White House?
Thanks, Tony. I don't have any updates to provide for you now, but as always, we'll continue to make sure that when we do have something to announce, we will announce it. So, all right. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it.
So we watched a briefing. Part of a briefing is what we watched. I only turned it in because they were talking about the call up a reservist by Putin. And they're not going to tell you everything. They're not. They're not going to tell you what their plans are or anything like that. It is good that they're taking care of their military families, because there's a lot of people who are in the militaries. If you just go in the military enlisted or something, you're struggling. You're struggling just to even make ends meet with a family. It's very hard to buy food. We were like down below like $10 for a whole entire pay period when I first went into the military with my husband. When we first got married, we only had $10 to last us for 2 weeks, and I was down to eating canned green beans 9 months pregnant. We couldn't get no help. We couldn't. They were very slow helping. So I think that's long overdue. They should take care of their families, their military families. The officers get paid better than the enlisted, but still, it's a lot to ask of people. You do build a community within the military. You do have a family. They become your family, and I personally, it was a wonderful life. I loved it. I loved it in the military. My children grew up in the military. I got to meet people from all walks of life. I got to leave the country. I got to experience all kinds of things, you all. And I had to leave my family behind here, all of my family. We were gone for like 21 years, more or less, and moved back to Indiana. So it is hard. It's hard, you all. Can you make a life out of the military? Yes. Not everybody in the military is bad, okay? There's got good people in the military. You got bad people in the military. Just like here in the civilian world, there's good people, there's bad people. We cannot classify everybody as either being a good one. They're all bad. They're all bad. No, they're not. They're not. All humans are not bad, okay? If an alien force were to come against the world and they classified all humans as bad, if they say there's not even a single good human here, well, I don't think that's right, because I know that there's good humans here. I know that there's people who got love in their heart, and they're not all bad. So really, the same can be said of people in the military and stuff like that. Everybody's got a job to do. You think it's easy to be in the military? No, it's not. It's not, but it's okay. It is. Yeah, I'm not going to knock the military, you all. I'm not, yeah, you know what? Because my husband was in the military, when we got out of the military in 2004, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2005. I have over $1 million worth of medical bills that came my way because of that. And we had TRICARE. TRICARE took care of it all. If not, we would have been bankrupt. We would not even have been able to afford the insurance. So I'm very thankful. I really am. I got $1 million, over $1 million in this body right here, you all. That's right. And my husband worked really hard in the military. He did. He supported his family. He got his associate's degree while doing a full-time job. He got his bachelor's degree while doing his full-time job and being deployed. Sometimes 9 months out of the year he was gone, if you counted it all up. He got his master's degree while being a full-time in the military, staying up to around 12 or 1 in the morning, while making time for his family, while going to work every day. Okay, so is it a hard life? Is it a sacrifice? Yeah, but you know what? If you want to make a life for yourself and you want to make yourself better, you can do it. Just don't dodge the military. Don't knock the military, okay? People are human. I'm human. My husband is human. So are the people in the military, you all. It's not all bad. If you haven't been there and if you haven't walked in those persons' shoes, you can't really speak against it now, can you? Because you don't know what it's like. I'm very thankful. I really am. I'm thankful that I can still use the benefits of the military, the TRICARE insurance. Otherwise, you know how much insurance is. It's so expensive, but I think it's wonderful that they're taking care of their families, especially if war is going to break out. They better be taking care of those military families. They better bring down those prices. They better offer really good care. They better, because you cannot be having that if you can't take care of your own troops. You can't. And you may not agree with it, but that's too bad. I loved it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It helped molded me into who I am today, meeting people from all walks of life. I got out of my own little world, I did, and I saw the big world. That's right. Hello, you all. Yeah. Let's see. It allowed your future vids. I don't know what that means. I lived. I did live. But I know what you mean. About certain aspects. It's a whole new different, it's kind of a different world now in the military. It is. It's not like it was when my husband went in, and when we got out, a lot has changed. A whole lot has changed. It has. But it's okay. They still need our prayers, just like other people on here. We all need prayers, no matter where we're from, no matter what we're going through, whether we agree with each other or not. We need prayers, okay? And we need positive thoughts sent our way. We shouldn't let things divide us. We should not. It's not the way to be. Dividing and conquering, no. We shouldn't have the hate settling in our hearts. We should not let bitter roots grow up within our hearts to where we form hatred toward one another. We should not let that happen. We can't. We got to band together, you all. We may not agree. We may not. But we know that love's important and unity is important. It is important. We know we need somebody. We know we need each other. Some people will say, I don't need you. I don't need your kind. Fine, go find your own kind. You need somebody. You need somebody. So thank you all for taking the time to watch this video. And I just wanted to tune in to see what he was saying about what was said with the calling up a reservist of 300,000. And I find it interesting that this conference was done with September the 24th right around the corner. That's why I tuned in. I thought, oh no, wait a minute. You're giving a conference and you're saying how you're going to take care of the military families. That's kind of interesting. It is really interesting, you all. It is. It's good to be aware of what's being said, whether or not you agree. Okay. And I may not have agreed with everything that was said, but I still was respectful. Okay. That's right, you all. And I would encourage people to prepare. If you feel the need to prepare, prepare. That's what I would say. If you feel the need to prepare, prepare. If you want to stick your head in the sand and say nothing's going to happen, everything's going to get all better, it's all lies, go ahead, stick your head in the sand. You can do it if you want. You won't see very much in that sand. You won't. You might even suffocate. You'll have to bring your head out to breathe. You really will. Get some oxygen in that body. That's so silly. You are, oh my goodness gracious. I only had to block 2 people. I let a lot of comments go. I did. And that's okay, you all. Yeah, you can have an opinion, but please be respectful. That's right, you all. We can do it. We can do it. Yes. We got the black budget. What about the money come up missing from the Pentagon that was trillions of dollars? What if it's the black projects? Those things that you don't hear nothing about. What if it's about UFO technology and stuff? What if it's about stuff in space? What if it's going to some other top secret things underground, and we don't know about it? That money goes somewhere. It does. Of course, I don't ever look into it, but it goes somewhere, you all. That's right, you all. Yeah. That's right. Forgiveness and love go hand in hand, doesn't it? We can't say that we love one another when we can't forgive one another, can we? No, not really. We can say we love and forgive, but then you don't forget. So it's like a double-edged sword now, isn't it? It is. All I know is hate ain't going to get us nowhere. Division is not going to get us anywhere but further divided. But love will bring us together. Love can build with even the smallest thing like that. Love can build even from something like this. Just like that. Just think a little bit of love can defeat a whole lot of hate, a whole lot of bad, just even a little fraction of it. It's like that, you all. We can do it. We can. We got differences. There's no sense in saying that we don't got no differences. We got differences inside of us. We do. We recognize them. We rub each other the wrong way, you all. We need to start rubbing each other the right way. That's right. That's right. And kind of tune out those differences. I kind of tune out the differences. I've really learned a lot being on the YouTube, okay? I have. And it's taken me a long time. It's taken me all these years, like 55 years, you all. It's a lot of growing to do in 55 years, even for this old soul. I think you all have grown too, even with the time you've been on earth. A lot of growing. To say that you ain't got no more room for growth, I know you do. You got room for growth. I got room for growth. We got room for growth. Okay, we do. So that's okay. That's all right, you all. That's right. We can do it. We're going to do it, you all, no matter what happens in the world, no matter if there's war that breaks out, anything like that, anything that's meant to divide. People with spiritual eyes can see straight through it. Okay, we can see straight through it. And we can say within our spirit, no, you're not going to divide me from my spiritual brothers and sisters. You're not. You're not going to put that divide there because I'm not going to allow it. You don't have to allow it, you all. You don't. They don't have control over our spirits. They don't. We're free spirits in these bodies right here. That's right. What happened? We watched a part of a briefing trying to see if they was going to say anything about the whatever thing. That's all. That's it, you all. That's it. That's all. That's right. It's all right, you all. We can do it. Yeah. That's right. Love you all too. I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go down there and drink some tea. I was drinking some tea. And then I came up here and somehow I saw that and it clicked right on Putin. I thought, I want to know what he's saying about Putin, but I'm glad they are taking care of the military families. I really am. They need a break too. They do. You're going to send their family members off to war. You better be taking care of those women and those men who are left behind with those children. That's right. You all take good care of them because that's going to be very rough on some people. A lot of people. That's right. So I'm going to go, you all. So with that being said, thank you. Whether you agreed or didn't agree, thank you for not being too disrespectful in your comments. We only had to block 1 or 2 people. That's it. Out of all the bunch, 1 or 2 people. So that's great. That's great. So with that being said, hello, wherever you are in any part of the world. Hello, from my heart to yours. Love you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, you all. Let's hope war don't break out. Let's hope it doesn't. We can hope for a better world. We can hope for unity and love. We can hope for a lot of love and forgiveness to build up our spiritual communities. We can. It is possible. It starts right here. Love you.